Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Thought I'd share a few dreams with you I've been having lately. They've been extremely vivid. Uh, I would say they were almost as real as what I'm perceiving right now to be real. So the first dream I had, now these have been over a series of nights. I've been wanting to post them like on a daily basis, but I haven't gotten around to it, so I'm going to try to start doing that. But for now, I'll just tell you the ones that have happened over probably the series of about the last 5 nights. There's been a few nights I haven't remembered my dreams, but these really stood out as something that really stuck with me. I'm not sure what they mean. So the first night, my wife and I we were on some sort of school field trip or something. It was a big group of people. They were all familiar, in the dream. At this point, I don't remember who any of them were, but it was just me and my wife, and we were at some sort of place by the coast. It was this beautiful kind of tropical setting. You could see the ocean, and there was many other tourists there. It was some sort of museum or tourist exhibit, possibly like educational, maybe like an aquarium or some kind of science, interactive thing. Anyway, it was time for us to all go in there, our whole group. And right as everybody was getting their tickets passed out, they basically told me and my wife that we didn't have any tickets, that they couldn't find ours, so we were just going to have to wait outside and we wouldn't be able to go into the exhibit. And we were kind of bummed, so then we went back to where they were getting their tickets from, and we saw actually that our tickets were there. So we pulled our tickets out and we looked at them, and it was weird because it was like my mom's name was on them. Like my mom had special ordered them or something. That was kind of confusing even in the dream. So we decided, like, screw this, we're just gonna go walk down here by the coast and see what's going on. And we could see that down below there was kind of like this bridge, and there was all these people around, and it almost looked like a SeaWorld type thing where there was these orca, killer whales swimming around, and there was like kind of like SeaWorld where you had like the marine biologists, like, trainer people in their wetsuits, like feeding them, but they weren't like in a tank, like they weren't in captivity. There was this kind of like this bay area where they had swam in from the ocean and they were just hanging out in there. And the tourists, of course, were all, very excited to see this and watching it. So we walked down there and we got on that bridge, and then what was crazy is all of a sudden these orca started jumping up in the air, but it wasn't like a normal jump up in the air like you see on TV. They were like almost flying. They were jumping up probably 100, 200 feet, and when they got up, they were kind of floating. And the crowd was excited, and these aquatic trainer people, they were also very excited, and they were telling us that this was a very rare sight, that you rarely see these orca do this type of thing. And the more that we watched it, the more there was 50 or so of them just jumping out, and they'd come down and they'd make these huge splashes, and then I remember telling my wife, like, this doesn't really make sense. It doesn't seem like this is real. Like, why would this happen? And then of course everyone around me explained, like, no man, this is totally real. Obviously we're seeing it right now. This is real. And then I remember seeing, it wasn't just the orca whales. All of a sudden there was like this hammerhead shark, and it was just floating up, flying up, and and then kind of doing this floaty thing 100 feet in the air, and then it would dive back down. And then all of a sudden I saw this other orca shark, or sorry, hammerhead shark, but it had like this weird color thing going on. Like you see those, I think they're called cuttlefish, or some kind of animal in the ocean that'll have it'll change color, like it's like this kind of psychedelic color shifting that goes on. But one of the hammerhead sharks had this kind of fluttery color shifting, and I was just like amazed because I had never seen that before, a hammerhead shark doing that. I think around that time I woke up and I was just like, what the heck? That was an intense, realistic, crazy dream. Very entertaining. So then I had this other dream where I was like kind of like I was at work, and it was like I worked at like kind of like an Ace Hardware type place, and I remember we all went to lunch, and there was this Mexican restaurant next door, and we went in there, and I don't really enjoy having Mexican for lunch because it always makes me very drowsy. But anyway, that was the only thing to eat. So we went in there, and it was like this buffet, and this isn't really that weird, but I mean, I just remember seeing these like burritos were there, and it was almost like a lunch, like a cafeteria. There was like kind of like people serving you the food, and I just remember looking at the food, and it was covered in this like type of red sauce that I don't really like generally. I'm always leery of certain types of burritos if they're drenched in this sauce, and I just remember being kind of like kind of dismayed that was going to be my lunch for the day. So anyway, I went back to work. I don't know how relevant the cafeteria part is, buffet or whatever. So I go back to work, and it was interesting because I was working with this guy who he was like a bus driver when I was in high school, and I had recently made a high school reunion site for our upcoming 20th year anniversary on Facebook, and that people had been talking about that guy in the last few days, and I had totally forgot about him. But when they mentioned him, of course, I remembered him, and I'm sure that's why he was in my dream. So he was in my dream, and he was telling me he was all excited about this type of this new, like, they were like rocks, kind of like little stones. He was telling me about that if you like hold them in your palms, that they like release this like type of energy, and like it's supposed to energize you and kind of balance out your chakras or something. I mean, he didn't explain it that way, but that's kind of the idea that I got. It kind of reminded me of like these bands that people were wearing for like sports and working out. They had like a little hologram on them, and supposedly that was supposed to create like balance within your aura or something like that. I'm not totally sure if that stuff works or not. I never tried it. But anyway, so I was like, well, let me see those stones. And I remember looking at them, and they really weren't like round, stones. They were more like kind of milky colored like crystals, and they were both different shapes. They looked very like raw, like natural. So anyway, I took both of them in my hands, and I held them tight, and it started like it did definitely start releasing energy. It felt very similar to like when you touch and hold something that's like slightly like electrical, like you feel that shock, but it's kind of a tingle, and you hold on to it, and it's like the longer you hold on to it, like the more intense it gets until you have to like pull away. So that's what it was like. But I was like holding them, and I started feeling that, and it started becoming like really taking over my body, and it was getting like really intense. And I remember like it made me kind of sit down and get into like this meditative state, and I was just kind of like, whoa, and people around were watching, and I remember they were starting to get worried because they're like, dude, he's holding on to him for too long, man. He shouldn't be doing that. And I just remember thinking like, oh, I can do it. And it never actually got intense to the point where I had to drop him. I think I just finally just kind of let him go and decided like, I had experienced them, whatever they were supposed to do. I don't remember feeling any more balanced or whatever after that. And that's all I remember from that dream. Not sure what that means exactly. Hopefully I'll figure that out. And then the final dream I had actually was just last night. I just woke up from this probably an hour ago, and it was interesting. It was like this guy I used to work with at his computer shop. For some reason we were like in his house, like remodeling it, and it was very stripped down. There was no furniture in there. We were like doing like drywall and like puttying up the walls, and there was like quite a few people there. Like they were my friends working there, but it was very disorganized. It was very chaotic. Like people would just kind of start on one little part of it, and then they would kind of stop and then start messing around and joking around, and nobody was really taking it seriously. And I just remember myself even doing that. I mean, I was like kind of going over, and I'd start puttying up a certain part, and there was just like, because it was so unorganized, there was just stuff like all over the ground. I mean, like, buckets and tools and, wadded up piles of like the sheets that you lay out when you're painting to keep the carpet from getting, and the flooring from getting paint on it. And I just remember feeling very frustrated and in disarray for all this chaos and lack of organization going on. I guess that's sort of the same feeling I experienced when I worked at that computer store. Is I felt like there was really not like a lack of leadership, like a lot of chaos going on, and like it was kind of frustrating for me because I felt like we really needed to get things in order so we could build this thing, you know. And then that dream kind of drifted into this other scenario where I was kind of working at this place. It was like a real open format, and everybody was working on computers at tables. My computer kind of looked like one of the modern like Apple iMac computers. I don't know if it was specifically an iMac in the dream or an Apple computer. It could have been a Windows-based PC, but either way, I was working my job, and I feel like that job was very similar to the job that I currently work as a business development guy. I do a lot of sitting at the computer, researching things, entering data, um, you know, inputting data, keeping up with my workflow, whatever exciting day job I have. But my friend Daniel's dad, worked there with me, and I'm always chatting with him on Facebook, so it's not odd that he's in my dream. But he worked kind of in this back room. It was kind of dark back in there. Like the area I worked at was very open. There was probably 50 or so people around me. Bright fluorescent light illuminating everything. But he kind of worked in this back room that was real dark, and it wasn't like shady or anything. It was just different. And he was working back there, and I'm not sure what his job was. But either way, he came out to me and he was just like, "Hey, let me sit down at your desk." And I thought he was just gonna like show me something on my computer, but instead he pulls out like this large glass sculpture, kind of looked like a vase or something. I can picture in my head like very well what it looked like, but it was it was clear. It had like kind of like a brown, maybe like wooden base, and he sat it down right next to the computer, and it's like he started looking at it and almost like drawing it out 3D in some kind of 3D modeling software on my computer. And I remember seeing that he had like all these notes for some reason that he had been taking, like he had been working on this project, and he had all these like, I guess he had gotten bored and like doodled all over it. But the doodles were like amazing. I mean, they were like these intricate, really amazing illustrations he had done. And I was like, man, I didn't know that you were such a good artist or whatever. And he was kind of like, yeah, there's like a lot about me that you don't really know. You know what I mean? And I was like, whoa, okay. And that kind of left an impression on me. And then that was basically when I woke up, and here I am. So those are the dreams I got for you right now. I'll get you some more soon. And if I find any meaning in any of them, if I can interpret them in some way, I'll do the best I can. All right, guys, have a great day.